Welcome into the Mental Moments podcast with your guide, Healing Hottie. Mental Moments is where we walk through life experiences, yours and mine, finding the ingredients to make life sweeter, a conversation to consider our minds, bodies, and soul, moving with gratitude, one step at a time. In this age of dating, many lead with lust and their quiet desires, completely denying if they're even compatible. How do we navigate that? Let's walk through this together.
Welcome in. How are we feeling today? I really want to know, so make sure you drop it in the comments. Mental Moments is a conversation, honey. And today we are talking all about towing the line nowadays of real desire and lust. Okay, one of the deadly sins. I was really inspired in this space and time. You know, I'm not dating right now. And I'm thinking about when I start to date again, like what am I kind of looking for, all of these things. And so naturally, I have been spending some time out in the world, in public, in events and spaces and all those things. And I'm often greeted a lot by what feels like lust. And so I'm having to discern between that. I'm having to understand what those things are, what they look like, what they feel like, and then what is genuine desire. So I want to get into that today with you and let's walk through this together. I want to tell a little bit of a story, right? After I got divorced, I'm gonna keep it completely real. I was living my life, okay? I was dating and living and doing all the things, and I was traveling all the time, and I was experiencing things. And I think I talked about this in the last season, but when I started to go out and started dating again, I had no real intention. I was just open and seeing what was out there. And I don't mean easy, but I was just seeing what was out there. And because of that, it brought all of these things that I had to figure out along the way that I didn't really want. Cool. Okay. Now fast forward, I have been not dating. Gosh, when was my last official date? I went on a date last year, so 2025. That was probably about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago now. I knew what I wanted. I still desired marriage. I still wanted someone who could be not only a provider, but be a protector. I wanted someone who could operate as spiritual covering. I wanted someone who did well for themselves, right? I don't ever limit someone's income to a number because that is not the God that I serve, okay? And I feel like that's just so superficial, that does not matter. But I did want someone who knew how to build, and if it all went away today, how would you rebuild? What's in your toolkit? What are you leaning on? What lives within you to be able to stand something back up again? And it doesn't have to be the same thing, but really truly live a life I am sustained, right? No matter what my circumstances look like, right? That's what I wanted, because that's how I was building my life to be. That's what my life has become. And so I wanted someone that aligned with that. Of course, I wanted someone who was God-led, not just God-fearing. You can fear God all day long, but if you do not submit to Him, it's not gonna work. And it's even something that I had to work through in my own journey, right? So I'm looking for these things. I don't really have a type necessarily. I will say that I am a little bit more attracted to someone who works out. I love Black men. I love someone who's taller. But I've dated shorter men before. I don't discriminate. If we are compatible and aligned, cool. So that's happening. That happened. So that was my last date, and so now I'm in this space where I'm just in grind mode. I'm focused. As y'all experienced in the last episode, I'm delaying grief. And I know that I'm not in the space to be emotionally available as much as I probably would like. And because people sometimes can see that, people who don't have the best of intentions. People are coming to me during this space and time very lust forward with a mask on, right? So they have these very deep and personal conversations and they want to get to know you, but they're like each other working their way up to that. That's like one thing that I'm dealing with on one side. And then on the other side, I'm dealing with this desire to like connect, be with someone. I want to be in a committed relationship and all of those things. And so I would be approached by people where I'm like, oh, they fine. Oh, they look good. Or I like what I see. I'm liking the energy. But then I'm like, am I like really like looking at them and like really like understanding who they are and desiring them for that? Or am I just like, thinking with my other mind? Okay. And that was challenging. Like I'm seeing how they're approaching me, and I'm also like looking at, how I'm presenting myself, how I'm receiving them. And it led me to question like, what is that difference? Now, I've spoken about this many of times and I'll never stop talking about it. I am a lover girl through and through. I love love. I love seeing other people love. I love seeing how kids love their mom. I just love. I do. Because of that, like, one of my favorite movies is 50 First Dates. Love that movie, Dion, because that to me is like a perfect embodiment of like that lust and longing vibe, right? That lust, to me, that movie is like the perfect embodiment of like that line between lust and longing. And that movie really very early on starts off showing how much he was leading his life led through lust. He was just, hit it and quit it and go on about his day and was not really seeking a ton of connections. And he was building his life on like lies and not really presenting himself right fully. And then he's like met with this beautiful woman, and I'm sure that his natural approach, like, is suddenly what had become a habit. I'm saying natural, but a habit, a approach out of habit, has now like ingrained so much in this story that now it's kind of throwing him off. He's seeing something a little different that he wants to switch things up for. And so he pursues this woman who doesn't remember him every day. And it's a beautiful story. And I've actually seen a real life version of this actually play out, where the significant other does not remember their significant other, but they are still in love with their significant other. And it's a beautiful experience. Growing up in that like lover girl mind, when I would date someone and I would get to know them, I would seek to connect with them, and I would like all these things about them, and I would fluff it up, and I was like, oh, they're so great and all these things. Now, I'm gonna be honest, that somewhere, along the way, that lust would kind of take over the relationship. That would take over. It would fluff it up so much that I would lose sight of like, okay, but what's really going on in this? And so it forced me to think about those relationships or that I'm seeking to build, and like, one, like understanding who they are and how I'm approaching the situation, and how I'm rooting our connection based on like what it really is and what they're really here for, and not just based off of what they're saying, but really how they're showing up and moving. And I often see a habit of people saying one thing in the dating space, like, oh, I really want a family, I want to build, and all these things, and all the while they're just focused on, getting to the end of the night. And I think that's dangerous. I don't think that's healthy for our hearts. And I'm considering like my heart, but I'm considering other people's hearts too. And it's one of the reasons why I took such like a strong break from dating, because I wanted to make sure that I'm not toying around with someone's heart. And so it's really, I don't really have a ton of tools today, but it's more of like questions to ponder on. How do you recognize when someone is leading into this space with lust, right? How do you know when you're only just thinking about someone on a physical level or what they can give you versus like showing up to build a genuine connection? Because now, especially in this podcast era, in this space where everyone can sort of build a presence online, it can be very difficult to understand like who is who and what are they really about kind of thing. And so I still don't have the answer there. But what I will say is that what has truly helped me in like how I'm considering how to build relationships with others is one, I pray about all of them. That removal prayer will clear things up real fast when you are uncertain. The other thing that I will say is, I have to be really honest here. If I'm in a space where I'm like a bit frustrated, for the lack of a better word, if I'm ovulating, I lean back on making decisions or connecting or getting to know that person. Not that I can't control myself, but I want to make sure I'm like of clear mind and not just because they smell good that I'm entertaining their time. Because I have been married before. I have spent most of my 20s in serious relationships. I'm not trying to do this wrong again. And the other thing that I will say, even though that is a part of my story, I do not lead into a space of being fearful in connection. And that's something that I've had to work through. So that way, where there is true like desire and like interest, I'm like, no, I really like this person. It can develop without interruption, where I don't fall back on that like unhealthy crutch of like, well, I'm not really sure about them, but they look good. That is something that I actively have to like check and challenge and work through. And so I would say to this, even though I don't have all the answers here, and I'm interested to hear from you, please comment, email, all of the things so I can understand like from your perspective what is helpful and discerning and understanding and how you approach. Really is that I'm not so quick to act on my first impulse. And even in that, I'm learning how to communicate on not necessarily with them. And maybe that is something that you should communicate. Maybe you're like, I'm having a really hard time like understanding like not what I like about you, but like what this is built on. And I'm not withdrawing. I just like, I want to understand what this experience is like for you, with me. And like, I want to tell you what I like about you and I enjoy. And I don't know what the best approach is here. But I do think that like in understanding people who are leading with like lust forward, they make it pretty apparent, like quickly. If they're too touchy, if they are, and it can be very indirect. And I literally had an example of this. I went to a networking event the other day, and I am like sitting there. I ran into somebody that I knew. We're sitting and talking, and she went to the bathroom, and he kind of waited for that moment. He came over, and as we're talking, like he's sitting a bit close to me, but where I'm sitting, I can't really like maneuver. And so he keeps bumping my foot with his foot, like he's tapping his foot and bumping his foot with mine. And I entertained the conversation for about 2 minutes, y'all. And I let him work himself all the way up to asking me for my number. And I said, I am trying to focus right now on many amazing things and what God has for me. So it's going to be a no for me. But I appreciate you for like taking this time to connect. And then he was like, well, what about like working in business? This is the other thing. Yeah, it's coming to mind now. He asked me, well, what if I wanted to like employ your services, like to work with you in the business that I run? He's like, do you have a business card? And I was like, yeah, you're good. You are good. And I very quickly said, I was like, oh, and this was true. I do not have a business card available with my updated branding. So sorry. And it was a firm boundary. And if that's not what you want in your life, like period, like dating things, you could just cut it off right there. My no, the first no should have been good enough. And the other thing is like, because I operate in these spaces like business, one of the ways that I've noticed people, if they're leading with lust and wanting to connect with me, they'll use anything to remain connected to me. And at first I would use that to my advantage to like grow my social media following. So I'll be like, hey, you can follow me on Instagram or you can follow me on YouTube. But even now I'm like, yeah, if you wanted to know who I was, like you could find that information, but I don't even want to invite that kind of energy where it seems like we're going to continue in this kind of behavior. And so really like shut it down early if that's not what you want to do. And then the last thing that I will say, it is human nature to want to desire connecting with human beings in many different ways. And that's natural, that your mind kind of goes there. But the approach, the way that you engage, the way is in which you allow that into your space, if that is just the primary thing that's like, what is the primary thing that's happening in this connection, is truly what is important. It's truly in like, you know, how I seek to approach when I'm dating. Like, I want to be in a relationship of substance. I want to be in relationships, period, across the board, of substance, that we pour into each other, that's mutual, that we desire each other like well in every way. And so it has been a journey. I'm not going to hold you. It is something that like I've been praying about, of like, when it's time to date again, like how do I put some of these methods to practice? And I've had to practice now in saying no. When it's like, when the one comes and it's time to say yes, like what does that look like? How do I do that? Because, you know, when you really like somebody, you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. But I want the yeah, sure, whatever to be in a healthy way. So I don't have all the answers here, but I would love to hear your feedback, your comment, your thoughts on like, not just in dating, but like in relationship building, how we can start to shift from a space of like, it's just, I desire them, versus like, I just want to connect with them. So love to hear from you. And yeah, you know, pray for your girl. Honestly, truthfully, pray for your girl, because we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I'm walking through the process of figuring it out, and I'm sure you are too. So if you got something, I'd love to hear it.
Remember, this is a conversation, so make sure that you follow us on Instagram at Mental Moments and Healing Hottie, so we can keep this conversation going. I pray what took me 12 steps takes you 3. Keep building a life you will be proud of, no matter how long it takes. Until next time.